Well, another tense night on college campuses led to hundreds of arrests when New York City police cleared pro-Hamas demonstrations at Columbia University. Now, on the opposite coast, University of California, Los Angeles officials canceled classes today after a night of violent clashes on their campus. These represent just two examples from dozens and dozens of chaotic campus demonstrations that continue, even as the Biden administration appears paralyzed to respond. Well, join me now to discuss this and more is Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Senate Homeland Security Committee and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Lankford, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Tony.
So, Senator, you called on the Attorney General Merrick Garland, and Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona to restore order on campuses. It seems like they're more concerned about votes in November than preventing violence now.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that the Biden administration is so worried about this election that they're pursuing the pro-Hamas election group and to say, we really desperately need your support. That's a bizarre place for an American president to be able to be on. People that commit acts of violence on a campus should face campus discipline. They're violating the code of conduct for that university, so they should face the consequences that are already in writing for violating the code of conduct in that university. When they're trespassing, when they're occupying a building, they face criminal charges as well to be able to do this. It's not peaceful protests that are coming in and people just exercising dissent. That's entirely appropriate to exercise dissent. But this is far beyond that. And these are folks that are literally pro-Hamas, trying to intimidate Jewish students on campus to get them to leave and to be able to intimidate them away, or to be able to shut down classes, which they've been successful at, or to shut down graduation ceremonies, which they've been successful at. So again, this is administration not doing their basic task of actually enforcing the code of conduct, and not law enforcement actually doing their basic task of enforcing the law.
You know, Senator, anti-Semitism is not new. It's been around quite some time, but this level, this violent demonstration, manifestation of this is new for what we're seeing on college campuses across America, and how so many elected officials, as you pointed out in this administration, are finding it difficult to call it what it is and put an end to it.
Yeah. Just being clear at this point, this is anti-Semitism that's on campus. And just to be able to state that seems to be a struggle for this administration, for different university leadership to be able to speak out and say anti-Semitism is wrong in all forms and we should speak out against it. We've even encouraged over and over again, as you mentioned the letter before, and what we've continued to be able to push, there is a definition it's a international recognized definition called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. That definition defines anti-Semitism, gives clear examples of what anti-Semitism is. The Department of Education currently refuses to be able to adopt that as their main definition of anti-Semitism. It doesn't try to impede speech. If someone wants to say, I disagree with Netanyahu, or I disagree with the war, that's their right to be able to speak it out. But when it transitions into genocide, when it transitions into things, hateful speech like Jews go back to Poland and things that are being screamed by some of these quote unquote protesters, that is transitioning from peaceful protest into acts of anti-Semitism and intimidation. We should call it what it is.
Well, the House just moments ago passed H.R. 690, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which actually does reference that definition. And if I'm not mistaken, the State Department has adopted that definition as well.
Decades ago.
But why not the Department of Education on our own soil?
So the Trump administration used that definition within the Department of Education, within the Department of Justice. The Biden administration immediately set that aside and said they're not going to do that. State Department still has recognized that for decades on this. That bill that just passed in the House, I'm a sponsor of that in the Senate. I'd like to be able to see that come to the Senate, and would push for a clear passage of that to be able to make it very clear. Again, it doesn't inhibit anyone's speech, but it does tell everyone that's in education, if your university is wavering on what is anti-Semitism, it gives very clear definitions so that everyone will know. And this is not something that's radical. This is something that's been accepted by countries all over the world, including our own State Department, which is not exactly a conservative bastion location of any agency in government.
Exactly.
So let's just make it clear what it is and what it is not.
So what are the prospects in the Senate? Is Senator Schumer going to allow this bill to come forward in the Senate?
So far, he has not made a statement on it. It's passed overwhelmingly, thankfully, in the House on a bipartisan vote there.
Right.
And I would hope that we can actually get that up for a vote here in the Senate, not to be able to find ways to be able to get it as an amendment vote, to be able to attach it onto something else that's moving. We just need to make it clear. What do we need to do as Americans when someone speaks out this way? Call it what it is should be the clear answer. It's anti-Semitism. It's anti-Jewish hatred.
Senator Lankford, let's talk Israel for just a moment. You were over there just a few weeks ago, shortly after I was there. Are you encouraged by, actually this week, we've seen stronger statements of support coming out of the Biden administration, in particular Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Are you encouraged by that?
Well, I'm encouraged today, but I also know I'll be discouraged tomorrow because this administration seems to waver back and forth. October and November and early December, the Biden administration was very clear. We have an ally. Israel has been attacked by terrorists. We're going to stand with Israel to be able to help her. And then since really January, it seems like every other week they're alternating in this. That is a clear frustration. It makes it more difficult for negotiations. It makes Hamas feel like that they can wait this out and to be able to use these moments or take on more hostages to be able to have more leverage. When we make a very clear statement on our ally, when we make a very clear statement against Hamas and their terrorism, and they need to release all hostages right now, that's a better position for the United States, and it's strengthening for the leverage in Israel.
You would think that we would not have any conversations with them until the hostages are released, but yet we now are getting word that Palestinian refugees from Gaza are being brought to the United States, that the administration wants to do that. I mean, should we not put all maximum pressure on Hamas to release hostages, which include some Americans still?
Right. Right. We still have Americans that are still being held in Gaza. We need to have the maximum amount of pressure that we can in every way that we can. No one wants to see civilians suffer, but Hamas functions as a terror organization very different than our military. The United States military puts itself between harm's way and civilians.
Right.
Hamas puts civilians between harm's way and their military forces. So they live underground in protected areas, put civilians on top. But we need to make it very clear. Israel is going after terror organizations and people that are still pledging to be able to kill them today. They have the right to be able to defend their own nation and to be able to go after people that are fully planning to come after them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no comparison between the two. When you look at Israel and the IDF and you look at Gaza and Hamas, apples and oranges are some other fruit. But I hate to bounce around here, but we just got about a minute left. Tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer. You're going to be there, a part of that. I mean, prayer is always appropriate for our nation, but it seems like where we stand today, it's even more so.
It is, and I challenge people to stop and to pray and to get together in small groups and to pray and to be able to pray on their own in quiet, private places, to be able to do publicly sometimes what they do privately all the time. That's to be able to pray. And also challenge people of faith. We get into the habit now of griping and complaining about government, what's happening in the world. Here's a simple challenge. We should pray more than we complain. If we catch ourselves complaining all the time and praying only a little bit of the time, that needs to be flipped and to ask God to be able to change our own hearts as he's working on the hearts of other leaders in the nation. So pray more than we complain is not a bad first step.
Well, we're told to do that, to not to be anxious, but to pray and to even be thankful for these challenging times that we live in. Senator James Lankford, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Good to see you again, Tony.